Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa mawala. Thank you to Chairperson. My paper today entitled Protection of Human Rights under Islamic Law in Malaysia. So there are 5 things that I will be discussing in my paper: introduction, and after that constitutional context of Islam and human rights in Malaysia, maqasid Sharia in the Federal Constitution, protection of human rights under Islamic law in Malaysia, and finally some concluding remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, in Malaysia, as we all know, Malaysia is a majority Muslim country, Muslim majority country with 34 out of 34 million population, 63% are Muslim. And one thing that we have to realize, there are some group of Muslim in Malaysia who may have some misunderstanding about human rights perspective. Some even think that human rights is a product of the West, have nothing to do with Islam, and not in not in accordance with Islamic principle. And because of that, I have put in my objective to ensure or to clear this misunderstanding by saying that Islam is a strong or staunch supporter to Islamic to human rights. Because human rights is part of Islam actually, but we have to clear the misunderstanding by knowing and understanding what does it mean by human rights in Islam. And after that, I will touch on how human rights has been protected under Islamic law in Malaysia. So if we look at the Federal Constitution, the highest law in the country, Islam has been put as the religion of federation. So this, based on this slide, I just want to explain the legal structure that we have in Malaysia. Even though Islam is the religion of federation, however, Islamic law is not the official legal system of the country or the federation, because Article 3 has to be read together with Article 4 that mention about the supremacy of the Constitution. So in other words, we can say that some of the Islamic element, some of the protection of human rights could fall or may have fall under the jurisdiction of federal law, which is not part of Islamic law in the country. Because as we all know, in Malaysia there are 2 types of laws, which is the law that fall under Sharia court jurisdiction as well as under civil court jurisdiction. So the Sharia court are under state jurisdiction, whereas for the civil law they are under federal jurisdiction. And for the Islamic law in Malaysia, to understand it from the perspective of Malaysia, it limited to personal family matters like matrimonial affairs, and for Islamic laws that stated under the list number 2, 9 schedule, that consists of Muslim affairs personal laws. Right, now if we look from the perspective of human rights in the Constitution, in the Federal Constitution there are one section or one division known as fundamental liberties. Okay, fundamental liberties mean human right. Okay, human right or fundamental liberties stated under Article 5 until Article 13. So Article 5 until Article 13 mention about the fundamental right of the people. It consists of the right to life and liberty, equality before the law under Article 8, and then freedom of speech under Article 10, freedom of religion, Article 11, right to education, Article 12, and right to property under Article 13. So all these are the human right protection in general covered by the Federal Constitution. Next, maqasid Sharia, as I have mentioned earlier in the presentation. In my presentation, maqasid Sharia in the Constitution, even though this Constitution was the product of the Red Commission entrusted by the British colonial power during the process of gaining independence in Malaysia in 1957, but we have to understand that there are some element of maqasid Sharia exists, even though not directly but indirectly exists in the Federal Constitution. For example, the principle of maqasid Sharia in Islam, we understand the element of hifzun nafs, the protection of the life. It has been mentioned under Article 5. And then the element of adalah, the element of upholding justice, okay, protection of life, intellect, hifzul aqal, hifzun nasab, protection of our dignity, hifzul al-mal, protection of our property, as well as the religion. So if we look at a number of articles, I just take 3 for example, Article 5, Article 7 and Article 8, all these have Islamic element. So if we look at the Quranic verses that mention about the equality, I take one example. In the Quran it was mentioned by Allah Subhanahu wa taala, ya ayyuhallazina amanu kunu qawwamina lillahi syuhada bil qist wa la yajrimannakum shana'anu qaumin ala alla ta'dilu. Okay, we have to be someone who stand firm with the principle of justice, and please do not ya'dilu huwa aqrabu littaqwa. Please do not make, injustice, okay, injustice towards someone who we do not like. I mean, if we have any problem with any group of people, any segment of the community, we cannot, based on that issue, we cannot be unjust to them. Okay, wala yajrimannakum shana'anu qaumin ala alla ta'dilu. And after that, i'dilu huwa aqrabu littaqwa, be just because it is close to taqwa. Then if we look at Islamic law in Malaysia, so we have to understand that Islamic law in Malaysia is under the state jurisdiction. Okay, the scope has been stated under 9th schedule. For example, matrimonial affairs, divorce, marriage, matrimonial affairs like maintenance, gift and all that, and then minor criminal matters. Jurisdiction and limitation based on whatever has been specified under list number 2. Okay, and the punishment under the Sharia court jurisdiction also limited. We call that under the formula of 356, which is 3 years imprisonment, 5,000 ringgit and 6 times stroke. So how, my question is, how human right can be protected under Islamic law? So what I can say is, not all human right principles are protected under Islamic law, because Islamic law does not, cover the whole thing in our country, including criminal affairs, criminal offences like murder. We know that protecting people from, protecting the right of the people, so that means to ensure that this offence of murder can be stopped, so that can only be done under civil law, which is under penal code. So in other words, we can say the spirit of this hifzun nafs, or protection of life, is implemented under civil law, even though it is under civil law. But we cannot say that it is un-Islamic, because the spirit of protecting the people's life is there. So in other words, we can say that there are some also Islamic principle of human right are protected under the laws which do not fall under Sharia law perspective or Sharia law jurisdiction. And if we look at the Sharia law jurisdiction, there are a number of human right protection. For example, there are some criminal offences that has been criminalized under Islamic law. For example, if I take Sharia Criminal Offences Act, Federal Territory, Section 19 about intoxicating. This is the element related to hifzul aqal, protection of intellect. And then gambling, sexual oriented offences, which is related to protection of nasab, protection of dignity. Okay, hifzul nasab. And then apostasy and related offences, this is also the protection of faith, hifzul deen. And then matrimonial related offences. So we can say that based on this provision, there are some element of human right protection under Islamic law. And then there are some selected cases like drinking alcohol, sexual related offences, apostasy, which has taken place in Malaysia in various states. We can say that there are some element of protection provided under Islamic law in Malaysia to protect the right of the Muslim, their fundamental right as a Muslim, or we call maqasid al-sharia. Then coming towards the end of my presentation, so there are some challenges and limitations. Number one, constitutional constraint. So these are something that cannot be cannot be avoided, because that has been stated in the constitution, where Islamic law is under the state, and only these are the jurisdiction of Sharia court. Whether the others fall under the civil, the vast majority of the jurisdiction fall under the state, under the federal government jurisdiction. And then human right protection. So we have to understand that human right protection in Malaysia could either be protected under Islamic law, but it also be protected under civil law. So we cannot say that the protection of human right under civil law is not Islamic, even though it is based on the civil law, but it also protect the right of the Muslim. But this is the real perspective of law in Malaysia, where we have to live within this legal perspective that may differ with other countries' law. So the way forward in the future, what we can do in order to improve our legal system is maybe to ensure that the jurisdiction can be enhanced in the future, especially that include the new issues that related to Islamic affairs, like Islamic banking, Islamic finance, or halal protection, halal certification protection. Maybe this can be put under Islamic law jurisdiction in the future that fall under Sharia court jurisdiction. And the other thing is about to ensure that the people understand that human right in Islam is, has some similarities with certain human right protected under the Declaration of Human Rights, various declaration at universal level. But of course, we have to make sure that it is in accordance with the principle of maqasid Sharia that has been stated in the Quran and the Hadith. So I think that's all. Hopefully it can contribute something to the knowledge and to all of us regarding the topic human right in Islam and protection of human right in Islamic law in Malaysia. Thank you very much. I welcome any question at the end of the session after this, insyaAllah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.